Switch 2 means awesome new hardware, but more importantly, it means the return of all your favorite Nintendo games and franchises. The revolving door of Nintendo development starts anew once the Switch 2 drops, and today we're talking about when your favorite Nintendo franchise will be returning to the Switch 2. Some games are going to come sooner than you expect, and I think some are going to be pushed back based on how Nintendo is structuring year one of their Switch launch cycle. So what's going on, everybody? It's Zach from SwitchForce. We're talking about Switch 2 games. I do think Nintendo will continue to support Switch 1 with re-releases and ports and some smaller titles. I'm not counting those there. I'm only counting when Nintendo brings back their familiar faces in huge fashion for the Switch 2. We're going to start off with the early years, 2025 and 2026. Let me know in the comments down below if you think I got any of this wrong or if you agree with me. I'd love to hear from you. But we know the first game is Mario Kart 9. And that's a huge deal. Getting Mario Kart so early is going to have ripple effects for the rest of the generation. Because I know Nintendo thought Mario Kart 8 Deluxe would be a smart hit early in the Switch 1 life cycle, but I don't believe that they thought it would be the biggest seller of the entire generation. Therefore, this being a brand new Mario Kart, it might mean that some of the other Nintendo multiplayer titles are shifted back a bit, because this is a gargantuan title that is evergreen and could easily sell another 40 or 50 million copies. We're lucky to be getting it day one, and I'm so glad it's the first title Nintendo chose to show off. We've got a lot more to learn about the game, so we'll move right along to 3D Mario. Mario Kart 9 is a guarantee, and I think this is as well. Haven't seen a full new 3D Mario since Mario Odyssey back in the first year of Switch 1, so this game is coming either this holiday season or early next spring. We got a glimpse of the future of 3D Mario in the Small But Mighty Bowser's Fury package, and that showed that Nintendo has been iterating, they've been ideating, and they're trying to figure out the next bold thing. I'm sure they've found that for Mario, and with the 40th anniversary of Mario, as well as a new Mario movie and a new Mario theme park, it means a lot of Mario in the first year of Switch 2. And that's why I think we'll also see Luigi's Mansion 4 very early in the Switch 2 lifecycle. Luigi's Mansion gained a lot of ground in the Switch era. LM3 was a humongous seller. They ported over Luigi's Mansion 2 with pretty good success. And not only is this a really fun game that features Luigi, who's proven he can carry his own weight, but it can serve as a great tech piece for Switch 2 to really show how the graphics have grown since Luigi's Mansion 3. I think LM3 is one of, if not the best looking first-party releases on Switch 1, and I expect them to dazzle us with lighting effects and an even bigger environment for Luigi's Mansion 4. Maybe a theme park, maybe a resort, going beyond the bounds of a hotel wall. I think Luigi's Mansion 4 is going to be one of the killer apps of the early Switch 2 cycle. And you can save Luigi's Mansion 4 on a Lexar Play card, which is the best, safest, fastest, and most secure memory card you can feed your Nintendo Switch. They've upgraded the speed so it reads and writes even speedier than ever before, and it is a fantastic way to ensure that all your Switch games are in one spot with up to 1 terabyte of storage. Click the link in the description down below to check it out for yourself. Every time you do, it helps support the channel and allows me to continue doing this wonderful Nintendo thing that I've been doing for nearly 10 years now. Can't wait to cross that threshold. But this year, I think we're also going to get the Donkey Kong threshold. They've shown their hand, right? They know that we know that they know that Donkey Kong is anticipated. And you might say, Zach, they just released Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, but I think that was to tie a bow on old DK. DK has changed. He's new. He's fresh. He's funky. He's got no eyebrows. Donkey Kong looks definitely different in his Mario Kart 9 debut, but he also looks different on the website. They clearly have changed the art for how DK looks, and they're just trying to absolutely stealthily convince us that this is the DK we know. But Mandela effect is in full effect as they are changing DK to look much more like his movie counterpart. And with a theme park land opening up this summer and a movie right around the corner, DK is going to be back soon. I think DK is a great complement to the early years of Switch 1, because it's not a game that Nintendo probably expects to sell 20, 30, 40 million copies, but it's one that can do very well and might be very intriguing early on. Again, I do not believe that the recent release of DK Returns is going to limit this franchise or push it back. If anything, the new art shows that DK is coming in hot. I also think that we'll get a Pokemon game, but not until 2026. That's probably the big November release for 2026. Gen 10 is due about that time, and we know that they've got Pokemon Legends ZA that is going to be a Switch 1 game. Might look a little bit better, perform a little bit better on Switch 2, but I don't think we'll get our true Pokemon title until holiday 2026. Many of these games will wait until the Switch user base is a bit bigger. The Switch 2 has had a chance to spread out, and some will continue to stay multi-platform. I think there's a chance that Gen 10 could indeed be on both Switch 1 and Switch 2, and then it will be Gen 11 that is the true Switch 2 only exclusive game. We'll have to wait and see how Nintendo handles all of this, but I would expect Pokemon and even maybe a spin-off in the second year of the Switch 2 life cycle. I'd also expect Kirby. I think Kirby can come back quite quickly, and even though we have a heavy rumor about Kirby Planet Robobot coming to Switch, that's a port. I don't think it counts or limits what we've got going on. Kirby in the Forgotten Land was fantastic and did amazing. The only reason I think that this game might not hit as early as I'm picking it to hit is because if DK is indeed going 3D, and then Kirby has already gone 3D, and then they do Mario 3D, and Luigi's Mansion 4 is a 3D game, are they going to need to spread out these more 3D action platformers to give them a chance to breathe? Or do they believe that each character carries its own audience and carries its own weight, and they can do Mario, Luigi, DK, and Kirby all within a 24-month period? I'm not so sure that that works out, and if one was to slip, I do think it would be Kirby because there's not as much around him in the media sphere. There's no Kirby theme park, he's not in the movie. Maybe he does make an appearance in the second movie in some cool cameo role, but right now Kirby is not as hot as DK, at least based on what Nintendo is telling us and showing us. So Kirby could get pushed a little bit, especially since those ports can be playable probably on the Switch 2 given the backwards compatibility. I also think that Ring Fit Adventure and Mario Sports are going to have releases in the early years of Switch 2. Mario Sports was a huge supporter of the early years of Switch 1, and I think it's a nice complement for the Mario Brothers anniversary, as well as Mario Kart 9, and those games are exciting, I think, when they release when there isn't as much else out there. Mario Sports, I think, saw a bit of a downturn this past generation. Despite the support of extra characters and maps, I don't think people loved Mario Golf or Strikers in particular. I think Tennis Aces was really good, and that's probably the one we're most due for, alongside maybe Mario Baseball, but I would definitely expect some Mario Sports game to hit in the first 2 years of Switch. That moves us to the mid-window, which I'm going to say is like late 2026 all the way through early 2028. This is going to be where many huge games come out, because the Switch 2 will have established a sizable audience already, and many will have converted from Switch 1 to Switch 2. That's where I think you see Animal Crossing bounce back into the limelight. Many are thinking Animal Crossing could come very early with the Switch 2, but I think they probably want to wait for the audience to build up, and Nintendo isn't like desperate at all, right? They can wait, they can be patient, and they know that Animal Crossing is sort of like a second lease on life for the system. It is the best mid-gen sales trigger that I can think Nintendo might have. They can just put out Animal Crossing mid-cycle and say, hey, now is the time to buy the Switch 2 if you haven't already. It also is a great game that might match up with either a Switch 2 OLED or a Switch 2 Lite or some sort of Switch 2 iteration that then they can use as sort of the flagship game to push that next step for whatever the Switch 2 becomes. I don't think Animal Crossing is going to release as early as people want, despite it being 6-7 years. I think Nintendo will take their time and ensure that they make a really great game. I also think Smash Bros. Fits right in this mid-window. Despite it releasing in year 2 of Switch 1, I think it's going to be year 3-ish for Switch 2. I wonder if Nintendo knows exactly what they're doing with Smash Bros. I'm sure development has begun, but have they found a way to build off of the ultimate version of Smash Bros? Like, what do you do next? Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was very big and bold, but there's many ways you can see them expanding upon that, especially with the roster and the rest of the Nintendo catalog for characters and tracks. But what do you do with Smash Brothers? Do you go back to a really refined small roster? Do you change up the gameplay tremendously? Is Sakurai the one actually developing this game? I think Smash Bros. Is coming mid-cycle, and I think you can expect a number of other titles there as well. Fire Emblem Engage released recently, so let's put Fire Emblem in the mid-window. Let's put Xenoblade in the mid-window because Nintendo frankly loves Xenoblade. We know that they do great work over there at Monolith Soft. They have sized up that studio year after year, and while they are releasing Xenoblade Chronicles X on Switch 1 this year, that is a port. I would expect them within the next 3 years or so to have something ready for Switch 2. WarioWare can fit in this mid-window, and so can Mario Party. We got a bunch of Mario parties this past generation, 3 to be exact, and I think they'll wait a bit before they push another title. You can play the new Mario Party on Switch 2, and that game will still probably sell well for a while. It's one of their most evergreen type titles. They don't need a new one. And with Mario Kart and 3D Mario, Mario Party can take some time to breathe. I believe we'll get ARMS back in this mid-window as well. Call me crazy, call me just fever dreaming, call me a hopium copium, but let's bring ARMS back for one more go. I don't know that they risk it so early in the Switch lifecycle again, but I think they did enough work there and enough DLC to give it another shot. They have so much of a foundation built there. I do think it's really fun. I think it was a thin, slight package that needed more content somehow or more modes. Maybe they can do that with Switch 2. Now we move to the late window, and you're probably wondering where a bunch of games have been, but this is where I see Splatoon 4 arriving. I think the Splatoon AC team is heavily focused on AC, and with that not releasing for a while, and with Splatoon 3 recently getting a big DLC bump, it's probably going to be a number of years before we see Splatoon 4. I think they could wait 3 years until they drop Splatoon, even though it's a big multiplayer title, with Mario Kart 9, with Super Smash Bros., with Animal Crossing. They have a lot that they can sort of placate the multiplayer audience until they bring back Splatoon. And Splatoon 3 and Splatoon 2 were so similar, they're probably going to want to reinvent the wheel a bit with Splatoon 4. Now, they could prove me wrong and just do Splatoon 4 really quickly, and it's, hey, the same game with new maps, and maybe then it does come out mid-window. But if they're really going to take the time to redefine Splatoon and make this a bold new entry, then it's 2028 and beyond for me. Remember, all the games that they released on Switch 1 can play on Switch 2, so you still have Splatoon, Smash Bros., Animal Crossing, Fire Emblem, Mario Party, and more. Those games are still valuable and valid, and many of them can continue to sell for new Switch 2 buyers or those who got a Switch 1 much later in the cycle. New 3D Zelda is the game that many will be waiting for, but I think you're going to be waiting a long time. Despite Tears of the Kingdom not getting DLC, it will take a while for Nintendo to rev up development and put out a new 3D Zelda. Do they decide to once more go back to the world of Breath of the Wild, or do they do something bold and new? Are they staying in this creative, build-your-own Zelda, or do they want it to be more linear and dungeon-based? We'll have to wait and see, but I think that will be one of the crowning achievements of the later years of the Switch 2 lifecycle. Zelda was a big feature in Switch 1, but that's primarily because Breath of the Wild was a cross-platform game, and then we got Tears of the Kingdom as sort of the big Zelda game. Remember that Mario is their biggest character, and we got one 3D Mario on Switch 1. So there is a world where we get one 3D Zelda on Switch 2. I don't think it's a guarantee that we get a whole bunch of them again, and Nintendo can pepper in 2D Zelda as well as ports and remakes. I think there will be a cross-gen Wind Waker port very early on in the Switch lifecycle, but because that's a Switch 1 and Switch 2 game, I didn't want to include it here. I also think Pikmin 5 will be late cycle. It took forever to get Pikmin 4. I don't think we'll get another Pikmin game anytime soon. Paper Mario had an explosion at the end of the Switch lifecycle, Mario RPG in general, but given that we got Super Mario RPG Remake, we got Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door, and we got Mario and Luigi Brothership, I think it might be a while before Paper Mario. I could be misreading this, and maybe it does come out mid-window, but I think Nintendo has kind of used up their Mario RPG sales for at least a couple of years. I also think 2D Metroid will be in this late cycle because Metroid Prime 4 will be probably a cross-platform title, cross-gen title, early in the Switch 2. It might even be a day one title that you can play on Switch 1 or Switch 2. And then I think 2D Mario is going to take some time as well. Mario Wonder was a wonderful change of pace. They evolved from the new Super Marios, thank goodness. But with so much early Mario, they'll probably want to save a new Mario for later in the cycle, and it served them well with Mario Wonder on Switch 1. There's obviously other Nintendo franchises as well, like Star Fox and F-Zero, but these are the major ones. And I think the things that are very interesting is Animal Crossing and Smash Bros. Being saved a little bit later, as opposed to Donkey Kong being moved up and Luigis Mansion 4 being moved up to release early on in the Switch 2 life cycle. No matter what, it's going to be freaking crazy to see these games in their biggest, best, boldest forms, and 4K at that. So I'm very excited for whatever Nintendo decides to release. But let me know what you think of my predictions in the comments down below. Do you agree with where I've placed these early window, mid window, late window games? Let me know your take. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, stay positive out there. And until next time, everybody, SwitchForce out.